Today we're going to talk about the 5 common mistakes that people make that put their retirement in jeopardy and potentially force them to go back to work. Have you ever seen a kid on Easter who's doing an Easter egg hunt and they're spending 10 to 20 minutes getting all these eggs and putting it in their basket, and then they find the one egg that's filled with cash. And all that cash is so exciting that they grab it and they dump the rest of the eggs for other people to come and grab. They've essentially forfeit all the hard work from the last 10 to 20 minutes of getting all these eggs just for the one egg that was shiny. That's essentially what these 5 moves will do to your retirement. Do you know of a guy who always went to work in a worker's car, kind of a beat up pickup truck or maybe a Honda Accord, a commuter vehicle, and they drove this thing faithfully, they got the oil change, they took care of it, and it wasn't very appealing to the eye and didn't quite have that status symbol, but it worked to get them from home to work and back every single day. Well, now they're retired and they're thinking, I know, it's time to upgrade. And what do? They go down to the local Mercedes-Benz, Ferrari, BMW, Audi store, and they are in the mood to be persuaded. And before you know it, they're walking out a couple hours later with a brand new high-end luxury vehicle that they took from their retirement savings to purchase outright, or they got a massive car payment or a massive lease payment. The first big purchase that retirees almost always regret down the road is a luxury vehicle. When you retire, do you really need that brand new Maserati? Who are you trying to impress? What happens is people have been delaying gratification their whole working career, and they decide, you know what, I deserve this, and it is my time to have that Maybach or whatever it may be, and they go out and they buy this $100,000 vehicle, and it totally is a big strain on their finances. So the first thing that you want to be considerate of is the pull to purchase a luxury vehicle. What if you found yourself in a situation where your house is finally paid off? You've been working your whole career and you've been throwing money at that mortgage and it's completely paid off now. Well, then you retire and you start thinking, I would love to have a house on the lake, or I would love to have some more property that we can fish on or take the grandkids on and have dirt bikes or, hunt or fish or whatever is important. And you decide to start looking for homes that are bigger than the house that you have now. What will end up happening is that you will have to get a mortgage to cover the increased cost of the bigger house. And it may not necessarily be that the house is bigger, but the property is bigger. Having a mortgage is a big deal when you're retired because that's an extra expense. And if you've paid your house off, it is a massive amount of peace of mind knowing that you do not have to make any more payments, that the house in which you sleep under is completely paid for. So the second thing that people make mistakes in purchasing when they're retired is a bigger house. Be careful. Imagine it's time to retire and you have been working your butt off for the last 30, 40 years and you haven't really done a whole lot of vacations. Yeah, maybe the weekend trip to the beach, which kind of sucked because the rain was there, or maybe you went to the Smoky Mountains, or you went, on an RV trip, but it was kind of localized and it wasn't that great. You went to Disneyland, got sick, and they charged you an arm and a leg. And you're like, you know what, babe, here's the deal. We've been saving our whole lives. We have all this money. I know what we need to do. We need to make up for lost time. And you start booking bucket list vacations to Rome and to Mongolia and to Moscow or wherever the heck you might want to go. And all of a sudden, you're having bucket list vacations every quarter and you're ripping through your retirement savings because of all these luxury vacations. Be very careful. It's okay to enjoy yourself and have some vacations. You should, especially if you worked hard. But if you don't have millions and millions and millions saved, doing these massive vacations on an ongoing basis, that is going to majorly deplete your retirement savings. So be careful with luxury vacations in retirement. Has this ever happened to you? Something changes or switches because of the circumstance. For example, you go from saving, and then something happens where it switches, where it's all about, I'm giving all the money away and I'm being generous and I don't know what it is, but I don't care and I just want to help all these people and give all this money and give these gifts to my family, and all of a sudden something switches in you, typically around retirement, and you go from accumulating to giving stuff away. That's good. You should have a heart of generosity. We're not against that here. But what we are against is when you're starting to give so much that you may end up having to go back to work. For some people, that may be just fine. They're so generous, they're so benevolent driven that it's okay if they have to go back to work and make some money because they love giving so much that it's all good. And that may be fine, but for most people, that's not the case. They don't want to give until they go to the poorhouse. So be careful with how you give. There are strategies to give. You want to give yourself a budget. You want to talk it over with your spouse, make sure there's consensus, because the last thing that you want to do is give too much away to where you're having to go back to work in retirement. And we've all been here for this last one. It's really, really hot and we just want to go someplace colder. Or it is freezing and you're looking outside the window every morning and you're like, I'm really sick of these 3 feet of snow and -7-degree weather. I know what I'll do. I'll buy a vacation home. And then you go off and you go buy a vacation home in Aspen or Florida or Arizona, and you get another mortgage payment that you're only gonna use for 4 months out of the year. Plus there's the cost of upkeep, there's the taxes, property taxes, there's insurance, and then there's the mortgage cost. Vacation homes can be a terrible idea if you do not have millions and millions saved. If you do, great, excellent, buy a vacation home. But for most people who don't, a vacation home can be a really bad idea. It sounds like a good idea, especially if you're like, well, I'll just Airbnb it when I'm not there. Well, that may be true, but think about it. You're living there in the prime time for that area, the peak visitation time, right? When people are wanting to travel and be in that area. So if you're taking it during the peak season, who's gonna do the long-term rentals or short-term rentals with Airbnb during off season? And so it ends up being a giant money suck and you end up losing a ton of money. So be careful with vacation homes if you don't have millions of dollars in surplus. Rather than buying a vacation home, look at doing a couple month rental, right? Or a 30-day short-term lease on a property in that beautiful area, in that climate. And then you're not shelling out hundreds of thousands of dollars and you're on the hook for this super nice home that's just gonna drain your finances. The bottom line, guys, is that when you're retired, you should enjoy your life. You should have fun. You should have joy and happiness. But if you get a little bit ahead of your skis and you end up purchasing these 5 things without thinking it through, it can be detrimental to your finances. We want you to prosper and we want you to make sure that you've got the information needed to have the retirement of your dreams. If you want more content around retirement do's and don'ts, you're gonna wanna educate yourself with this playlist above.